If you've clicked into this video, it's because you want to be a nurse in Denmark. And I've gotten the question oh so many times, that's why I make this video. This is for the non-EU citizens because it's another application process. Some of the things are the same, some of them are not. So first of all, you need to apply for an authorization. This you will do with the Patient Safety Board, and I'll get into what the requirements are for that. When we have gotten your application, you have paid the small fee, then the Danish authorities, they will assess it and see, are you having an equivalent education to the Danish nursing education? You might not be equivalent with the Danish registered nurse. So you have gotten the approval. All right, do you need to learn Danish? Well, you don't need to prove that you can speak Danish, but I will warmly recommend that you learn Danish because your employer needs to make sure that you can communicate with your patients, and it gets a lot easier when you both are speaking Danish because there are a lot of Danes that still doesn't speak English, especially in the older generations. And then the third step. All right, yes, we're almost there. You need to be employed for training and educational purposes. Because you might have learned to be a great nurse in Zambia, or a great nurse in Hong Kong or in the USA. But it is not the Danish system. And you need to learn about the Danish system, how, well, the different institutions communicate, how the different things align to make a broader health perspective in Denmark. It's the same thing if I moved to Australia. I would have to learn about their system first. But what is in the authorization application process? Let's dive a bit into that. The first part of the assessment is the 6-year rule. The 6-year rule means that if you have finished your education longer than 6 years ago, then it will be rejected unless you can prove that you have been employed over the past 6 years as a nurse for at least 12 months. So when you have that, you need to have your education assessed, and I will read directly from what the Danish authorities actually says. To have your foreign education assessed, you need to submit your application and the necessary documentation via the application form and pay the fee. The fee is 1,295 Danish crowns, which is this much in euros, pounds and dollars. Then they say, fulfill all documentation requirements. We will only process your applications once we have received all documentations from you. Which means that you don't miss out on anything. Make sure before you fill out this process, make sure to have all your papers ready. Everything about your education, everything about where you have stayed, everything about all things. Because you need them in order to make sure that they approve you. And if your foreign education is perfectly match the Danish in level, content and all these kind of things, but you lack the clinical hours, well, you might get a preliminary approval where you are required to take up some clinical hours. Sometimes we get them at my hospital. It's usually a couple of months, sometimes up to a year, depending on where you have taken your nursing education. We actually had a nurse, don't want to say where she's from, but she had 0 clinical hours, which I don't understand how you can become a nurse without getting out there and training it. Let's dive into the more formal things, because you need to know what documentations you have to send. First document is proof of identity, passport, driving license, everything with a picture on it. Something that can identify you as being you. If you have changed your name, have gotten married, you need a name change or a marital certificate that shows that your name has been changed. And this matters especially if some of your papers are in your old name and some of them are in your new name. We need to know how you have gotten it changed and why, because otherwise it will get rejected. Then you need to upload a curriculum vitae, CV, because it's a documentation for what you have done and where you have worked and all these kinds of things. You need to upload your final diploma. Yeah, of course you need to upload your diploma. Sometimes they spell it too much out here on those websites I use for making sure I say it all. And then you need a final school transcript study program, which is a detailed description of what you have been taught while going to nursing school. And this must contain the following, and I read aloud loud from the website again. Your name, name of the educational institution, start and end date of basic education, duration of basic education, information of theoretical subjects, the number of teaching hours, credit for each theoretical subject. Information of the clinical subjects, the number of teaching hours, credits for each clinical subject. Number of weeks per semester. If the scope of the course is only stated in credits, the educational institution must provide information on how many theoretical and clinical teaching hours one credit corresponds to. And this was only what you have to have of school papers. Now you need to also document that you have had at least 12 months of work within the last 6 years. If you have any supplementary postgraduate master's courses, also upload those, because they will also count towards approving your license. And if you have another person handling your entire application process, they of course need a power of attorney, because they need, well, approval from you to act on their behalf. And about the translation of papers, you need to upload your papers in the original language. And if they are not in English, Norwegian or Swedish, then you also need to upload, well, a Danish translation. And you need to have that accompanied by a certificate from the translator, which shows that they are a certified translator, which means that the translator's name and stamp must be clearly visible on the translation. And with this little video, I hope you're ready to start your application process. Just remember that sometimes we actually say to foreigners that, all right, you cannot become a registered nurse, you can become what we call a social sundhedsassistent, which is a nursing assistant. It's a little more than that. It's kind of like the American licensed practical nurses. You might be a registered nurse in your own country, but, well, Denmark, it's not up to the standard that the authorities have put forth. But it is no shame in, well, taking that, because the salary is almost the same. The responsibility, no, not the same, but the salary, almost the same. And if you want to get smarter on nursing, then check out this video, where I talk much more about nursing, and YouTube actually thinks you will like this video, so check it out.